Welcome to the Punk CX podcast. My name is Adrian Swinscoe. I'm an advisor, author, and general explorer of the service and experience space. My guests tend to have just released some interesting research. They run a company that has some interesting tech in the service and experience space. They are part of an organization that is doing some cool stuff, or they run their own business doing interesting things for both their customers and or their employees. That's enough from me. Let's get into the interview. Now, before we get into the interview, I want to give a big shout out and thank you to the folks at Hubspot for sponsoring my podcast this month. Now, Hubspot have built an AI-powered customer platform with all the software, integrations, and resources that you need to connect your marketing, sales, and service. It's all very, very cool. So do check them out at hubspot.com. And also, thank you to them for sponsoring my podcast this month. So now that you know that, let's get into the interview. So welcome to the next edition of the Punk CX podcast. With me today, I have Daphne Costa Lopes, who is no less the Global Director of Customer Success at HubSpot. And I should say, newly minted Global Director of Customer Success at HubSpot. She's got promoted. So big up kind of Daphne on that. And big congratulations. Daphne, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for having me here, for celebrating my promotion. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today.
Perfect. So, Daphne, for the benefit of our listeners and our people that read the highlights I put together, rather than me doing a bit of an intro, leaving a bit of a canned bio, tell me a little bit about yourself. Give me a bit of a thumbnail sketch on who Daphne is and what you do, what you get up to, what makes you tingle.
Yes. Well, you've already introduced my title. So, Global Director of Customer Success at HubSpot. I am responsible for the teams that drive the success of our largest customers at HubSpot. Mm-hmm. So it's an honor to be responsible for that team. Outside of HubSpot, I also host a podcast called This is Growth, where I talk to other customer success leaders on how to build and scale their customer success organizations. I write a weekly newsletter that just teaches people how to build those revenue generating teams. But customer success isn't my whole life. I have a life outside of that. I love the outdoors. I'm a big hiker. I just hiked Mount Kilimanjaro there in December, which is incredible, life-changing stuff. And I'm also a very mediocre surfer, but I love doing it. So it doesn't matter that I'm crap at it.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. I mean, it's like myself. I mean, I like getting outdoors as much as I can. And I've been, for the longest time, I've been a rock climber. Now, I don't do as much as I like. I do more bouldering than anything else, but I've done big mountain sort of like stuff. But I call myself an enthusiastic averager, as it were. So it's like I have a lot of kind of energy and enthusiasm for it, but I'm not elite by any kind of like standards. I just like the sort of the discipline and the way the exercise I get from it. So it's great to kind of like to meet somebody that's doing, like that enjoys the outdoors as well, but also enjoys kind of like some of the stuff that's in this kind of customer sort of space. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the podcast, because I know we were talking about setting up this podcast and there was a bunch of things we were exploring sort of topics, and you said a couple of things and I thought, we must explore those. And the first thing that you said was the customer isn't always right. And I was like, that feels like we're about to slay an urban myth, kind of like a sacred cow, if you like. And I thought, what? So the customer isn't always right. Daphne, can you help me explain what you mean by when you say that and why you say that, and what are the implications for brands?
Yeah, let's start with the hot take straight away. I 100% believe the customer isn't always right. And let me explain what I mean by that. The customer often comes to your business with the desire to achieve a certain outcome. They want to either grow their business, or they want to automate a process. They want to implement something that they've never done before. And they look at you as the expert for that, right? And you, if you're a product company or if you're a service company, you have helped hundreds of other people do this. You've spent thousands of hours thinking about this problem. You are the expert,
Hmm.
right? So when a customer comes to you with the request for a specific solution, it doesn't mean that they're always right in how the solution is executed. Now,
Right.
I'm not
Okay.
saying you shouldn't listen to the customer and you shouldn't dig into the pain point and
Hmm.
what's causing it and what they want to achieve. Like all of those things are very, very important. But I think what people sometimes mix up this statement of the customer is always right is that you have to just do whatever the customer asks you to do.
Hmm.
But, the customer, maybe they haven't done something before. Maybe they're doing what they've always done. They're just repeating a cycle. Maybe they don't know the industry best practices. Maybe they
Hmm.
don't have data to confirm the hypothesis that they have or to disprove the hypothesis. So your job as the expert, as the business that's building the solution to help dozens, hundreds, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people solve this problem. It is your job to be opinionated about the right path forward,
Yeah.
then to help guide the customer to those outcomes that they want to solve those pain points. But like I said, it's not about taking this at face value and just being a note taker. The customer says, I want A, you execute A.
Yeah.
That is not the way to get customers to the value that they want to see.
I think this, and what that makes listen to you, and I think that's, I completely agree with that. And it makes me think about like relationships, right? Just generally, you know, if if you have a relationship and somebody's always doing what the other person kind of said, it's all very one sided, right? That
Mm.
somebody's in control. And actually, a really good relationship is when you're interested in the other person, and you listen to them and you respect them, but you also have a strong enough relationship that you can sometimes call them out on something. You're like, no, I'm actually not sure that that's right. Maybe you should think about this, this, and this. And if it kind of, because you've got their best interests at heart, right? And I think
Mm.
so when you were talking about that, I was thinking customers isn't always right. Of course. Like if I think about the relationship I have with my wife, I'm not very right very often at all, but that's fine. It's the same. And it flows kind of both ways, right? But actually the strength of your relationship can probably be measured by how robust of a conversation that you can have because you've got each other's best interests at heart.
Mm, absolutely. And in customer success, we have a term for that. We
Okay.
say we want a customer success manager to be a trusted advisor.
Right.
So, a trusted advisor is somebody that has built enough trust credit with the
Mm-hmm.
customer by genuinely helping them solve problems, unblock issues in their organization, achieve results, that they earn the right to have those difficult conversations, to challenge the customer, to push them to do better and more and to innovate. So that trusted advisor relationship is something that, especially in B2B business, where you're
Yeah.
dealing with organizations and there's a higher touch kind of interaction, that is what you want to create with your customers so that you can build the future together and it can be a brighter future. They're going to challenge you too, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
going to say, that thing that you're building doesn't make sense. And this is the reasons why. And you will improve, you iterate on your solution based on their feedback,
Yeah.
but they will also improve based on what you're sharing with them.
Perfect. It's a proper partnership, right? It's like you're in it together. It's not just that you're, as you say, not just a note taker and doing what people can like say, but actually it's like it's an exchange with a shared vision, shared goals, objectives, all these different things, because you're kind of like, if you invest in each other, then everybody wins.
100%.
Perfect. So circling back to what we were talking about, that conversation we had before, there was another thing after the kind of the hot take, as it were. There was another thing that you said that I wanted to dig into, because it's like this perennial problem, right? It's like a weed in the whole experience sort of space. And you said siloed systems inhibit the delivery of tailored experiences. And I mean, about silos again, right? It's like this thing that just kind of keeps coming up. And I sort of, I know it's a difficult problem, but I wanted you to I wanted to get your take on the whole siloed kind of problem. Can you explain what you mean by when you say that they inhibit the delivery of tailored experiences? And sort of like also dig into what it's costing businesses, and also what they should be doing to try and combat these silos, because it is a perennial problem, right? And we've got to figure out how do we bust through all that to be able to deliver those better outcomes and those tailored experiences that customers want and also brands want to deliver.
Yeah. So what you have in a lot of businesses is multiple disparate systems that touch the customer experience, right? So your marketing team could be using one system, your sales team is using another system, your services team is using another system, your customer success team is using another system. They're all separate siloed systems. And when you're thinking about delivering a unified customer experience, what does that mean? It means being able to look at the behavioral data, the qualitative data, the quantitative data, and to take insights and make decisions about how you tailor the customer journey. When you have all of those siloed systems that are all configured very differently with very different data architecture, and you're trying to unify all of this information to create one picture of the customer in order to make decisions on how you guide them through a tailored journey, that is very hard. It's really, really hard to do that. But when you bring marketing, sales, services, customer success all together under the same platform, and you have that data infrastructure, those systems, that shared understanding of the customer, and then you throw AI on top of that, right? Because obviously it's now such a big topic for companies. How can they leverage AI to improve the customer experience? When you have all of that data together and you throw AI on top of that, then you are able to unlock insights. You're able to tailor the customer journey. So if a customer has a certain behavior, you can put them in a specific path and you can respond and react to how the customer is navigating your journey instead of being this really static, slide form journey that you see in a lot of places where you have one perfect path. But if a customer steps away from that path, everything breaks. So with all of that data unified, you can really truly tailor the experience to the customer. And what's really interesting is that that's truly the expectation of our customers today.
Yeah.
Like they expect that if they gave you information on your website about something, that they don't need to go and repeat that information in 10 other forms again. They expect that if they said something to your sales team, that they're passing that information on to your customer success team, your services teams, your support teams. They expect that if there is a support ticket that's open and they talk to somebody about it, that person can access that information. So customers have this really high expectation of the customer journey. And by having siloed systems and having teams working in those siloed systems, you're really not enabling a good experience for the customer. And ultimately, they end up frustrated, right? I think we all can relate to, calling your internet provider and telling them the entire story of how your internet isn't working. And then they pass you on to the next person and you have to tell the story again. And then they pass you on to the next person and you tell the story again. And that happens 3, 4, 5 times until somebody can solve your problem. That is truly a horrible experience. Nobody wants to go through that. And the more you put customers through the cycle, the angrier they get, right? If this is a problem, my problem has increased through that interaction versus alleviates. And this is obviously only one case, but there are so many places where you actually lose the customer's, let's say, appetite to buy because you're now asking them to fill out this massive form instead of just making it easy for them to click through something and make a purchase there and then. So there's a ton of places where you end up losing the customer, either their trust or revenue from them, opportunities to help them realize value, just because your systems don't support the customer journey in a way that they should.
Sure.
So I think that is to summarize the cost to the business is exactly that, is the trust and the revenue that you lose.
Yeah, no, I think it's absolutely right. I mean, I think it's you said it's like when a customer calls, they sort of expect that information that they've exchanged with whether it's a salesperson or a support person or a success person or whoever, that it's going to be easily shared and easily accessible by everybody across the kind of the business. Because I'd imagine it's like, it's essential, particularly when you're working in success. You call up a customer and you can turn around, you're like, hey, Daphne, how you doing? Just want to check in with you, see how things are going. And then you kind of start going through your agenda of what you want to kind of cover. And then you don't realize and then they go, do you know that your sales team just called us about X, Y, and Z? And you're like going, what? Nah. And it just feels like you're not a joined up organization. And then you get to that kind of point, it starts to undermine the relationship that you have. And then it goes back to the thing that we were talking about before about the customer isn't always right. And it undermines potentially your capability or ability to have those robust conversations, because it's like in the mind, you get almost like, it's not necessarily about the one-to-one relationship, but the broader relationship with the organization seems to be getting undermined all the time, because you haven't got everything all knitted together, as it were.
Yeah, absolutely. And shameless plug to HubSpot here. Like, that is exactly the problem that we aim to solve. We are a customer platform where we have all of those customer facing teams together in the same platform in a way that everybody can have a unified view of the customer. And like you said, when the customer calls, you have a full context of what's happening. You know if the sales team has reached out. You know if there is a ticket that hasn't been resolved. You know when they clicked on a pricing page because they're interested in a product. Like, you have all of that information in front of you. And I know we're talking about the customer experience, but think about the employee experience here as well, right?
Yeah, sure.
If I'm an employee and it takes me an hour to gather all of the information that I need to pick up the phone and have a valuable conversation with the customer, I can only talk to 4 customers a day, if even. Like, I'm not even counting internal meetings and any of that. So the number of valuable interactions I can have are greatly diminished because I'm navigating all of these different systems. I'm trying to pick up all the information. In many cases, the information doesn't match, right? How many times you log into a system and it shows you one data, and then you log into the other system and it shows you different data, and you're trying to figure out which of the data points is right that you can put in front of your customer. And you now have to talk to an operations team because you're trying to figure out which data to use. Like, now you've just exponentially increased the amount of time that it takes to add value to your customer. So when you have all under one roof, your employees can actually access this information in one click. They can scan through it and they can go and have those valuable conversations and be productive and achieve their targets and their goals because they can work in a much better, more effective way. So I think that, like, this is a two-pronged problem. It's a customer experience problem, but it's also an employee experience problem.
I think that's absolutely right. And I think this problem around the silent behavior is a lot to do with different kind of systems, but the thing that underlines the whole thing is like data and having all your data in place. And this problem is only going to get accentuated now because you talked about AI, and we'll come back to that a little bit later in terms of what you guys are doing in the sort of space. But AI doesn't work if it doesn't have access to all the right sort of like data, right? And that's the thing; it's not magic. It's like it has to it builds off the data that that you've got. And so I think it's like this problem of this siloed systems inhibiting the delivery of tailored experiences is only going to get worse if you don't get your data house in order. And the only way that you do that, one of the best ways to do that, is either kind of like bringing it all together or working on a unified platform that works across all the silos, that makes it easier for people to share and interact and access kind of data to get the insights that they need to deliver the value and the tailored experiences that they want. I should also say, because I forgot to say it right at the top of the podcast, you did a bit of a shameless plug. Fair play to that. Because actually, guess what, folks? I should have said this at the top of the podcast. HubSpot is sponsoring the podcast this month. So thank you for that. And kind of another shameless plug for them. I've known about HubSpot, followed your progress for the longest kind of time. And cool bunch of folks. And so thank you for sponsoring the podcast this month. That's awesome. But next thing I wanted to talk about was going back to our conversation, is all these different themes that came out. You also mentioned this idea about customer-led growth, which I thought I really liked. And it might remind me of of this, the idea around, well, see when you're in a SaaS company called PLG, like product-led growth. And I wanted to ask you, is that the same thing or is it different?
Yeah, we're now going to talk about my favorite topic of all times, customer-led growth. Customer-led growth is not the same as product-led growth.
Okay.
What I would say, customer-led growth is thinking about your current customer base as the place where your business can extract the most growth, right? So think about it. You have $1 million in revenue at the start of the quarter. Can you, with the same number of customers, end the quarter with $110 million in business, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you are trying to grow your install base by growing your customers. And what does that look like? Obviously, in order to grow customers, you need to have offers that allow you to position new products, new tiers, new services to that same customer,
Mm-hmm.
which puts you on this like lovely flywheel, right? Of you acquire a customer to solve a problem, a specific need that they have. You go and you do that, right? You deliver on that value. And then you earn the right to sell more to that customer and solve different problems that they have.
Mm-hmm.
And this can continue and keep growing. If you think about a company like HubSpot, that's a platform, has multiple products, like we can continue to grow a customer across multiple products that we have, multiple tiers that we have as they grow as well, right? As their organization becomes more complex, as new problems arise. So it's this idea of like continuously building to help grow your customers. But one of the things that is very key in customer-led growth is your ability to deliver value to the customer, right? Because if you earn the opportunity to solve a problem for that customer and you don't do it, right? You're not able to deliver value on that first purchase. You haven't earned the right to sell more to that customer.
Sure.
You haven't built the trust. You haven't created something, an ROI for them. So you're not going to be successful in that conversation. So customer success, or this idea of delivering measurable outcomes for customers, become very key in this flywheel of customer-led growth. But yeah, it's different because it can be high touch, it can be low touch, it can be product-led, but it's all about how do we sell to a customer that initial need and problem that we solve, then we go and deliver it, we prove that we delivered it, and then we go back and sell more to them and continue that cycle. A lot of SaaS companies would have been familiar with the word or the term land and expand, right, as a strategy. So customer-led growth is a land and expand strategy, right? But by adding this element of the value delivery to the customer, you really put the customer at the center of that. So I am obviously in customer success. I've been in customer success for over a decade. I'm extremely passionate about this because I've seen the value, right? I've seen businesses grow over 30% year on year just on their install base.
Right.
Like if they find 0 customers, they still grow 30% a year. How wild and incredible is that, right?
Well, no, it's very cool. I mean, I think to me, it's like, it seems that I always like to try and make things, think about things in very, almost like simple terms, and sometimes in relationship terms. And there seems to be a theme coming out of here because customer success, it seems to me, is a lot of it's about relationships. But there's sort of 2 things that come out to me, out of what you were kind of saying to me that strike me that from what you're saying is, one, don't take your customer for granted, right? Because it's about delivering value for them. And if you deliver value for them, then it comes back to you. But at the same time, you've got to keep earning the right. And you've got to keep trying to, so, and those 2 things kind of like go kind of like hand in hand. So like, don't take them for granted, but then continue to earn the right. Because if you continue to earn the right, you don't take them for granted, and it becomes a bit of your flywheel sort of thing. But it's always having them at the center of your thinking and their success. I think that's one of the kind of challenges that I've heard about repeatedly within customer success, is that oftentimes people, they create a customer success function, or discipline within their organization, and then they get caught up with, actually it's about driving extra revenue. Yes, you can, but not if you're just about selling kind of things. You have to actually earn. You have to deliver value and earn the right, and keep delivering value and earning the right, and then that the revenue will take care of itself. It's almost like the right way around is what you're talking about, rather than getting it back to front where it becomes sales led, and then people don't get the results that they want because they're not focusing on the right thing.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, we're not doing customer success from the goodness of our hearts just because, we want to see happy smiles and faces. We're doing it because it's good for business.
Sure.
Right? When we make a promise to a new customer, when we spend all that money, acquisition is expensive, right? And it's becoming more expensive. So we spend all of those resources acquiring a customer, right? If they don't stay, and if they don't renew, we are not going to recoup that initial investment and make a profit on that customer.
Mm-hmm.
So customer success is on our best interest.
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
We have to do it. And in order to do it well, we need to understand what customers want from us. We need to understand what they need from us and what value is like the top priority for them. So one of the things that I see very often is customer success organizations that only look at a revenue indicator as a metric of success, right? So they look at net revenue retention or just gross retention or churn. So they look at those revenue numbers, which of course you have to do, right? You're a business, you have to look at those things. However, those are lagging indicators that your customer success team is working.
Sure.
And what you need is leading indicators. And if you ask yourself, like, what is the leading indicator that a customer is going to renew and grow? The answer is, have they seen value with your product?
Mm-hmm.
That is the main reason why somebody renews and expands with you. So if you're not able to measure whether customers are getting value from your product, you're shooting in the dark. You don't know if they're going to renew, right? And a lot of companies might decide to choose like a usage metric as a leading indicator and say, well, if the customer is using, usage is a proxy to value, right? Mm-hmm. They're using the product, therefore they're getting value and therefore they're going to renew. And what they get wrong about this is that usage, while if you don't get usage, that's always bad, right? If somebody's not using your product, there's no way they can see value. So on the negative is always true. On the positive, if customers are using your product, that isn't always true that they're seeing value, mm-hmm. right? So some customers are logging in, they're using the product, they're trying strategies, but they're not seeing results, right? Some customers are. And you need to be able to differentiate between the customers who are seeing value and the ones that are not. Mm-hmm. Because the ones that are not, you need to go and tailor the approach that you have with them. You have to intervene in that relationship and say, hey, Mr. Customer, I know you bought HubSpot because you want to increase the leads that you generate in your system. I can see that you're not generating leads. Let's have a conversation. Have you tried using email marketing? Have you tried running events? Have you tried, you have to help them, mm-hmm. guide them to see results. It's not enough that they're logging in and clicking buttons. They have to see value. So I think when we think about metrics to really keep us honest on this customer-led growth motion, yes, the lagging indicators of revenue will always be there. They're important. But what are the value metrics that you can monitor to help you understand which customers need your help to realize value with your product, so that you can then throw resources into that to make sure that they see value and then make sure that they renew and grow with you. So I think that's a really important piece of the puzzle to get right that not many companies do well.
And I think that comes back to some of the things that you said originally about becoming that trusted advisor, right? Because as a trusted advisor, you have to be doing that continuously, right? You can't just kind of like show up at a QBR and go, it has, and just kind of like download a whole bunch of things. Oh, this is not working, that not working. You should try this, you should try that. Yeah, almost like you almost have to be constantly on it. It's, but that's kind of my kind of thinking, because actually that's how you build trust and credibility. You don't build it in a big, infrequent kind of basis. It's almost, you have to kind of like deal with it in it's almost a lot of little touches because it becomes a journey. I mean, is that fair to say?
100%. Yeah. And that is why I always advise people to build those proofs of value inside your product if you can,
Mm-hmm.
right? So as you use HubSpot, as you log in, let's say you're doing email marketing. When you send your email, you come in and you see a dashboard and you can see what's your open rate, what's
Mm-hmm.
your click-through rate, what is at the unsubscriber rate. You can see all that data, but not only you can see that data, you actually see whether that data, that result is good or not.
Mm-hmm.
So you're benchmarked against all other customers that HubSpot have that looks like you in an anonymized way. And it says your open rate was 30%. Congratulations, that's a really good open rate. And
Mm-hmm.
it keeps nudging you in the direction of making you better at the thing that you're trying to do. So we're not only counting on a human to pick up the phone and call you and have that conversation, but we're building that in the product to make sure that you're consistently being encouraged and driven to value. And even on an example is we actually attach resources to help you. Like, let's say one of your metrics isn't good. Like here's a playbook for you to go and try.
Right.
Here's
Okay.
an article for you to go and read. So we started putting into the product as well these points where you can get educated on the things that you're not doing so well, or you can get celebrated, right? There's nothing better than going to your boss and saying, we launched this campaign. Look at how well we're doing. We're doing better than everybody else in our industry. Look at our open rates, etc. So there's like, I think building those proofs of value into the product is a really important way of continuously giving those nudges that you talked about to make sure that people every single day they're getting better at the thing that they're trying to do.
All right. I mean, and I wanted then to maybe kind of like jump off from there and ask you about, well, let's face it, everybody's talking about artificial intelligence, particularly kind of generative AI right now, and how it's getting infused into products and so on and so forth. And I wanted to ask you a bit about, I know you guys have been doing a lot of work in this sort of space and developing lots of new AI tools. And I wonder, like, actually, what you were just talking about then, I guess that's been informed by generative AI, because those will be kind of like those kind of proactive suggestions and things. You're like, oh, check, congratulations on this, but here's some proactive suggestions about if it's slightly under par. Here's what you can do next. Or am I guessing? Kind of tell me what you've been up to in this kind of in your AI labs, as it were. Sort of like what sort of things have you been creating?
Yeah, and you're right. Like all of these recommendations, they are machine learning. They are AI. So we're analyzing the data of thousands and hundreds of thousands of users to be able to come up with these insights. I think there are a few things that HubSpot is doing as a product with AI that's really, really exciting.
Okay.
So if you are in marketing and you're creating websites, you're creating landing pages, etc., we have now a website generator that's an AI that helps, using prompts that you can put together, helps you build like incredible websites and landing pages with literally just using AI. So you can do it very, very quickly using simple prompts. And what that does is we understand like what great websites look like, and we're helping optimize for that. We have an AI content writer, again, to help you copyright in a way that's going to attract visitors to your website, but also saves you time and money, because copywriting takes a long time. We have SEO recommendations, again, like they're AI driven to help optimize the website pages, blog posts, and things like that, so that you can rank higher on the search engines.
Sure.
We also have AI summarization, which is one that I really love, which is taking interactions that are happening in marketing, sales, and services and summarizing them. So if you are going to pick up the phone to the customer, you have a summary of the activities that have happened recently, which I think are super, super helpful. So those, I think, are some of like the popular, more exciting features. Now we have chat bots, we have content remix, which is really, really cool. But I don't need to get into all of the details, but we are heavily invested in AI because we understand the power that you can generate from having all this data unified in one platform and then being able to supercharge your customer experience using this data. So HubSpot's like completely invested on this. We're building loads of exciting AI features into our product and unlocking just incredible use cases that, to be honest with you, I never even thought we'd be able to do with AI before. So it's been amazing to watch the innovation that our product team has put together. So huge shout out to the product team who has been like moving at breakneck speed to deliver some of the stuff to our customers.
Awesome. I mean, so I know there's been a lot of talk about this and talk about use cases and this, that, and the other and stuff. But I guess what I'm really interested in as well is there anybody that any examples that you can share of like people that have been, I guess, leading the way, right? They're being like, God, they've taken it and they've grabbed the tools and they're like, this is completely going to help it, and we're off. So is there like, have you got a couple of examples of kind of clients, companies that you've worked with that are doing some pretty cool stuff with some of these kind of like new tools in your platform that you can share with us, so we can actually see what great looks like?
Yeah, I have to say that like since we started launching these features, like there is a ton of customers that are adopting this and really help like create this AI revolution. Like it'll be too many customers for me to mention any single one. But one of the things that I want to say is HubSpot. In HubSpot, we drink our own champagne, right? We run HubSpot and HubSpot, and we're truly the best use case that we have for using AI. Our teams are leveraging these tools very, very heavily. Like as we build them, they are things that we are putting in place and using it ourselves. We see the value of it. Our customer success strategy team, shout out to them. They're amazing. They've been doing some great AI stuff that's not inside the HubSpot product. So we have been, I would say, in the forefront of leveraging AI in our own business. And it has been amazing to see the results.
Perfect. So thank you for all of that. That's kind of really interesting. I love the idea about all the things that you shared with me about the sort of unification of data, the kind of the approach to customer success, delivering kind of these better kind of outcomes, some of the stuff that you're doing with kind of AI. Particularly, I love the kind of the idea that the summarization sort of thing, where you're a service person, you're a success person, you're a salesperson, you can come in and like, tell me what the latest about customer X or customer kind of Y, and it goes, wait for a minute while we kind of the cogs turn, and it goes, poof, this is the latest, and it summarizes everything that's happened, all those interactions, what they were about, the history of the customer's account, all these different sort of things, so you can see the latest. I think that's super interesting and speaks to that demolishing the siloed, the siloed behavior that many organizations struggle with. So Daphne, is there anything else that you'd like to add or highlight that we've missed out before I ask you like a few quick fire questions just to kind of wrap things up?
Yeah. I think one thing that we didn't kind of dive into that I love to highlight is the very start of our conversation, we talked about, the siloed systems, right? And pain points that silo systems create. You mentioned in that part of the conversation that like you either integrate everything and make sure that all the data is like stored correctly and is talking to each other, etc., or you use this platform where everybody can have access to the entire data set and it's all hosted and unified in the same way. I think one of the things that we didn't talk about was the cost of the collaboration that you lose or you add on top of all the collaboration that you need to create if you go with option A, right? If you go with an integrated system. We talked about having your sales, having your marketing, having your services, your customer success, you have them all separately. like, even if you integrate the data and the integrations work perfectly well, which we know very well, isn't always the case. But even if you achieve this nirvana on this integration environment, if you want your teams to work together, right? If you want your teams to collaborate, to share information, and to be effective while doing this, you have to be in one system.
Mm-hmm.
Once you put everybody in their own systems, you are naturally creating silos based on where people work, and you're hindering that collaboration, because in order to collaborate, people have to get out of that system and go into a chat channel and open a thread or get on a call. So when you have everybody in the same place and you have this visibility of the customer, you gain this kind of like almost immeasurable benefit of the quick and easy collaboration between the teams. And in the end, the customer feels that. The customer feels the integration of that experience, instead of being like, oh, there's like, oh, this is our system and this is their system, and I can't see this information, and I need time, and I need 2 days to book a meeting with this person to learn this before I talk to you. So there's like this immeasurable cost to your organization of having these silo systems. So in my opinion, even when you achieve that nirvana of integrations, which I think is very, very hard to do, and I haven't seen it done really well, even when you achieve that, you're still losing on the collaboration that your employees can have if you have everybody in the same platform. So that's the one thing I wanted to say before we wrapped up.
No, that's kind of great. It makes me think that actually there's something that can be, there seems to be, there's an idea in there that can be borrowed from customer success, that we think we should maybe take some of those principles and turn them in on ourselves, and think about colleague success, and think about, okay, what do we need to do to make our colleagues successful? And as we work together, now that could be a system. It could be that you end up have regular kind of meetings about how can we best work with each other to make you successful, to make us successful, et cetera, et cetera. And I think but what you were talking about, there's some of the principles around focusing on the value, and if you focus on the value, making and making that your focus, then the other outcomes that you want to drive towards will just happen, kind of like naturally. And so I think, I don't know if that's a thing, but it's like, but borrowing from customer success, maybe turning it in on ourselves and thinking about how do we kind of like operate a colleague success mindset as well, might be also an additional kind of thing. Tell me I'm mad, Daphne, or does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense.
Excellent. Right. So, final few quick fire questions before we kind of finish up, because we talked about a whole bunch of stuff, right? And I always like to get people to boil it down, almost like the quick take, not the hot take, the quick take. To give people, ask people to give them, our audience, kind of their best advice. And the way I've been doing that recently is asking them to complete this sentence. And so the sentence is, if you want to improve your customer or employee experience, Daphne Costa Lopes says, do this, ... Daphne, complete that sentence.
Yeah. So if you want to improve your customer experience, my best advice is to bring your marketing, sales, and services teams together under the same system, so that you can have a unified view of your customer at every single stage in their journey. And that way you'll be able to make better decisions for the business and also offer a better customer experience.
Awesome. Full stop. Thank you very much. Drop the mic. Daphne says, do that. Go off and do that. Second question, because this is the Punk CX podcast, and I've written a couple of punk themed kind of books around this kind of topic. Punk CX was the first one. Punk XL was the second one, the follow-up one. And XL stands for experience leader or experience leadership. And so what I've been doing is been asking people, what company or brand do you think takes a more punk approach to customer experience, or is an experience leader? Like, who's got it all knitted together? Who's leading the field, and why?
I thought about this answer quite a bit, because since we talked, I knew you were going to ask me this question, and I've been stressing over this. But I think I have a really good one. I don't know if any of your other guests have said this. If they have, I think is just reinforcing the fact
Mm-hmm.
that this is a really great company. But I'm going to say Patagonia.
Right.
And the reason why I'm going to say Patagonia is because at the very start, I said the customer isn't always right.
Yeah.
And for me, Patagonia is the perfect example of a company that knows why they exist and the value they create for the world. And they lead the way, they teach, they educate their customers in order to achieve those outcomes. And on the way of doing that, they create great products that are long lasting, that people love. And they do it in a way that doesn't just create value for the shareholder, they are creating value for the planet, for their communities. So I just think like from a well-rounded perspective, I think Patagonia is completely leading the way in here.
Also, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think Patagonia is a brilliant company, and big shout out to Yvon Chouinard and for what he started, and the team are continuing. It's like they definitely lead the way, but in terms of striking the balance and creating the success that they do. So yes, a great example. So final question, and this is the one that I've been using for a little while now, because the world is a weird place, and I get up in the morning, first cup of coffee, I feel like I'm doom scrolling. There's this, there's that, there's other, and it's a bit like, oh dear, show me some good news. And so I thought, actually, why don't we embrace that on the podcast? Why don't I ask people to finish the podcast, apart from the fact that everything we talked about has been great, let's finish on a personal good news story, or something that you've seen. What have you seen in the last sort of week that you think, that was just great, I love that, it made me smile, made me feel kind of warm on the inside? Kind of like, so Daphne, your good news story, please.
Yes. I actually just read recently that we are rewilding wolves into Northern Ireland. So wolves had completely disappeared from Ireland for a very long time. They just weren't, native anymore. But there's an entire project of bringing them back to Ireland, and that's having incredible benefits when it comes to the ecosystem. And I read that and it just made me smile because there's somebody out there dedicating their lives to doing something so incredible like that. So yeah, I was doom scrolling and I found that information and it just made me smile. I think it's a great initiative.
Awesome. I love that. I mean, I love like projects like that. I mean, particularly if it's bringing back animals that were once kind of like roamed the hills and the moors of the of Ireland and reintroducing them. And it makes me think about other kind of stories. Like here in Scotland, they've introduced beavers to certain parts of Scotland because it was positive for the beavers are not native to Scotland at all. But I think they've introduced them because there is a positive thing. I don't think beavers are native to Scotland, but anyway, they've introduced them and they're building dams and doing all sorts of different things, which is like super cool. So I love those sort of things. So thank you for that. That's brilliant. Definitely just want to say, that's all I have today. I just want to say, first of all, obviously, thank you congratulations to you on the promotion. That's awesome and well deserved. Thank you for sharing your time, your insight, and your experience with us today. That's been awesome too. And also a big shout out to Hubspot for sponsoring the podcast this month. That's been awesome. So thank you all round.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Wow, what a great interview. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. Find out more about me and the work that I do at adrianswinscoe.com. Do leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. And if you have any comments, feedback, or questions about the podcast, then feel free to send me a message to podcast@adrianswinscoe.com. And do tune in again. Thanks very much.